Since the spawn of the stock market, two classes of people have been pitted against each other.
Eternal enemies forever forced and fated to combat.
Lions and hyenas.
These lions, these Wall Street hedge funds have it all. Billions of dollars, bailouts for reckless trades, these dirty fucking criminal bastards.
This last month, we've explored many sides of the financial world through the lens of cinema. Most, although not all of it, have been focused on stories surrounding people at the top in our society. Whether at least vaguely fictional characters like Gordon Gekko and Bud Fox in Oliver Stone's Wall Street, or in films like Wolf of Wall Street or The Big Short, these are stories about people within, or at least near, the top rungs of finance. Even as characters like Jordan Belfort or Steve Eisman and Michael Burry in The Big Short took on Wall Street, they did it from a position very close to Wall Street, or at least backed by people within Wall Street. The exception this month was in the squalid desperation of David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross. This week, we're ending Monday Night Extravaganza on an underdog story without the squalid desperation or the backing of high finance. Craig Gillespie's 2023 biographical comedy, Dumb Money.
Smoking hot blonde asks them, like, how do you have so much money?
You know what they say? They say, dumb money, babe. Dumb money.
Dumb Money is a retelling of the moment in 2021 when a plucky group of online retail traders and Redditors decided to invest in GameStop, largely on the investing platform Robinhood, in order to break the short bets being done on everyone's favorite store in the mall that will buy your old video games by large investors. Yes, this time the people shorting things are the bad guys. Keep up, the market moves fast. Instead of doing a classic pump and dump, many of these investors decided to stick with, or hold the line, on the GameStop stock in order to do a short squeeze, showing that regular investors in the stock market could do something to fight back against the big hedge funds that generally dominate the market. Dumb Money is almost shot in the style of a pseudo-documentary. It has big actors like Paul Dano playing the main YouTuber and small-time investor, Roaring Kitty, who led the charge and got everyone from the Reddit community, Wall Street Bets, to hold, despite his 100,000 by the end of the squeezes, shares in GameStop. America Ferrera, Pete Davidson, Shailene Woodley, Sebastian Stan is the creepy, duplicitous CEO of Robinhood.
The idea for Robinhood really came out of the Occupy Wall Street movement. All those people with no way of getting in.
Is that what Occupy was about? I mean, were they trying to get in, or?
So we said it's not enough to occupy. We need to democratize Wall Street.
I'm not sure if you know this, but Beju and I are both immigrants. I was born in Bulgaria, and Beju's parents immigrated from India to the deep south.
The investment platform that claimed to be attempting to democratize the stock market, even claiming the platform was a literal attempt to occupy Wall Street, but was revealed to be colluding with Ken Griffin's Citadel, the massive hedge fund that was shorting GameStop. Nick Offerman plays Ken Griffin. Vincent D'Onofrio, a.k.a. Gomer Pyle, plays Mets owner and hedge fund manager Steve Cohen. And Seth Rogen plays the bumbling, hapless Gabe Plotkin, the founder of Melvin Capital. So huge names playing real-life characters. However, I'd call it a pseudo-documentary because the entire movie is spliced through with actual news footage and interviews, often just superimposing the actors, especially Sebastian Stan in one montage, onto real conversations that actually happened, and Paul Dano into congressional testimony from Roaring Kitty.
Videos. You honestly couldn't recount to the committee what caused every single up and down at the stock in January? I think you could.
I did follow the stock very closely, but thresholdless order flows, halting purchases, according to the press, these all had a material impact on the stock. Here's the thing, I have a bit of experience with this stuff, and even I barely understand these matters. It's alarming how little we all know about the inner workings of the market, which is why I'm glad this committee is examining what happened.
It's a pretty addictive David and Goliath story, as the promo for the movie, perhaps somewhat hyperbolically puts it, with average Reddit users and retail investors going up against some of the biggest institutional investors.
How much did we lose today?
$1 billion.
And yesterday?
$1 billion.
And in some ways, I mean, just look at the Robinhood pitch. It's a pretty obvious self-inflicted wound. Shorting companies everyone really feels an attachment to is a good way to make yourself into a villain. And offering up a platform that will democratize the stock market, but is fully backed by institutional Wall Street money, is a pretty obvious way to ensure people eventually get pissed off. One interesting thing about the movie is how uncomfortable I think Hollywood assumes people are with Reddit. I mean, there's a big push within the movie to say, yes, it's a Reddit community, but not like that, which I think is fair, but Reddit is a social media platform like any other. It's not 4chan or anything anymore.
They call themselves apes and R-words? Retard? Can they say that?
Remarkably self-aware.
Craig Gillespie has taken on projects usually revolving around either complicated characters. He directed Margot Robbie's first produced project, I, Tonya, which also co-stars Sebastian Stan, or projects like Lars and the Real Girl. There's a certain amount of alienation and empathy in these choices. It gets brought out in Dumb Money as well. We could talk about the role that the pandemic played in all of this.
It's kind of weird to talk to someone and see their whole face, right? It's been so long. I work at a hospital. You could probably tell.
Essential worker. Thank you for everything you do.
Oh, you're very welcome.
The year 2021 is one of limbo, where the COVID vaccine made it possible to live life again, but the pandemic still raged on. And throughout Dumb Money, there's a feeling that everyone is longing for community, which during the pandemic was found online. The free time that many of us wound up with, the alienation in general, and the uncertainty definitely led to a spark where sticking it to a Ken Griffin and the Wall Street elitism that he represents wanted to do. The subsection of people who decide to stick with Roaring Kitty, college students in debt, America Ferrera's single mother nurse, fed up with being called an essential worker but not treated like one, an actual GameStop employee, also considered an essential worker because GameStop essentially sold computer mice, and a vision of investing that's tinged with a bit of nostalgia and a nebulous form of online populism buoyed by memes and chicken tendies is definitely an interesting mix here. It's a mix of people who are both incredibly balkanized either by their age or their job, but also most in need of the money, and yet they hold. The film also manages to be pretty funny. Pete Davidson is here as Roaring Kitty's slacker brother who steals his car and joins the Reddit community just to talk shit about his brother.
It's one of many Warrens. Sasso thinks he's Jimmy Buffett now. Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett. See? You're not either of the Buffetts. Kitty. Your balls.
But also a bit of relatable tragedy. Their sister died from COVID months before the GameStop saga. It's a mix that makes for a family you definitely want to root for. Culminating in a Capra-esque surreal moment where Paul Dano, as Keith Gill, goes in front of the actual Congress, including AOC, first declaring, "I'm not a cat."
But before I do that, a few things I am not. I am not a cat. I am not an institutional investor.
It's like a kitty thing.
Of course, the real-life non-Nick Offerman Ken Griffin managed to lobby his way out of any penalty, even as Melbourne Capital, the hedge fund he backed with loans, crumbled, for colluding with Robinhood and for the way the stock market is rigged, as Wall Street is wont to do. I think in the end, the film does struggle to come up with a point to all this. But maybe there really wasn't one. Rather than being a story of a war between institutional finance and retail traders, it's but one battle in an everlasting war. Roaring Kitty left public life with a YouTube channel as a monument to his glorious moments in the sun.
GameStop is one of the most compelling asymmetric opportunities in the market today. Really, I don't understand how you could disagree with that. That's why it's the top position in my portfolio and also Dr. Mike Berry's portfolio. But based on prevailing sentiment, the market, and popular culture, many think it's a foolish investment. But everyone's wrong. It's like The Big Short again, or more like The Big Short Squeeze this time, right? Anyway, let me show you what we're seeing.
And the film's final titles, too optimistically posit, well, now Wall Street looks online for retail traders' opinions, which honestly isn't really anything. But I'd argue that the story is interesting without grappling with that. The sad truth is that these same forces coalesced around crypto just a few months later, which had an eerily similar pitch. In the end, Dumb Money is more of a funny and entertaining time capsule than anything. And for the moment, when the stonks are up, baby, they are up.
And as for me, I like the stock.
Big stuff for that.
And I don't plan on selling anytime soon.
Hold it.
Diamond hands, baby.
Attaboy.
Tonight's show is brought to you by Yabiga. A bulk and rockiest spirit, go to yabiga.com to order a bottle tonight. Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. We also have a new Discord and a Letterboxd HQ account, So those are 2 more places to follow along with us. Links are in the description. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Botanic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends has a new split LP with Lung, Adult Prom, available now on Bandcamp. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Eileen Jones is the host of the FilmSuck podcast, the author of FilmSuck USA, and a film critic at Jacobin, as well as a former UC Berkeley professor in the Department of Film and Media. That's right, I'm your host who just can't stop holding diamond fucking hands, Forrest Miller. That's right, shorting is bad this time. We're all about the squeeze. Feeling a little squeezy. Honk.
Great. Well done. Well done.
I love that he was like, I never told you guys it's about the squeeze. It's not about the squeeze, but I'm feeling a little squeezy. Honk.
Eileen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. This is interesting because I think I might be the biggest fan of this movie here, like way bigger, maybe.
I like it. I like it a lot, and I don't know if I like it as much as you do, but I really am glad. First of all, that we did a theme month and that we set it up in such a way that it built to this. And I wasn't thinking about the fact that this is the first movie that the movie we did before this, it references in the movie. Like it's so meta referential in general. I mean, the whole meme stock thing and everything about the story, which again is like ripped from the headlines, right?
Well,
that's the biggest complaint about it from people.
It's also funny that Wolf of Wall Street, right? Like we did that right before we did
right,
and it doesn't reference that in this movie, obviously. With they have some of the memes are Jordan Belfort memes, but then with like the Wall Street Bets guy's head over it.
Who there's some argument that that character, that icon that is the Wall Street Bets dude is like basically supposed to be Jordan Belfort, and then everyone's like, yeah, that's a bad guy to like make into an icon. Like, and they're like, well, it is, and it doesn't even look like him. I'm like, okay, fine, except for the fact that like in the early memes he was doing the movements that he was doing in the movie. But okay, whatever.
But no, what I was gonna say is that both Jordan Belfort and Dr. Mike Burry kind of crawled out of the woodwork to promote the GameStop, or to like make themselves an expert on the short squeeze. What's happening. So it's interesting that those are both movies that we've done back to back.
Yeah, it's a great theme idea. Really brilliant.
Well, and at least we get a little bit of justice at the end. After an entire month of like the bad guys just like winning hand over fist, it's like, oh yeah.
And that might be why I love this movie so much, and I'm so sad it did horribly. I don't know, I'm sure you know.
The trailer did not help it.
Just died like a dog. It still only made, I think the last thing I checked said 8 million. It cost 30 million to make. It's just like atrocious.
It's interesting. The people that seem to be the most excited about it are the people from like Wall Street Bets that have made like those finance channels, because I like looking through the stuff for this, a lot of it was like review of this movie by the guy from Wall Street Bets, or like it'll be like a Reddit finance account that's like that's like that's like oh, new movie coming out, review, blah blah blah. Like I don't know, they were the most hyped to see themselves, I think, on screen.
I think Stonk Mom is totally like the biggest fan, bigger than Eileen.
Well, and there was that I think it was called Eat the Rich, like the GameStop Saga. There's like a mini series that came out around the same time too, and like another documentary that was like a little more dry. And I think by the time the movie actually came to pass, there were two things going on against it, and one of which is that there already that had been covered in other forms of media that was relatively popular and interesting, and the other is that like people weren't ready to be reminded about the peak pandemic too. They were like, oh no, I don't want to see a movie about that. Jesus, like that sounds terrible. Like there's a great go ahead, Eileen.
Oh, well, there's to add, there's one other big thing. There the writers and actors strike was happening when it came out, and the actors couldn't promote couldn't promote the film. So in fact, there's an article that's called something like 8 reasons why dumb money tanked. Like there's you've named several of them, and that's another one. There's a bunch of reasons why it did so murderously badly. But I watched it going, I love this. We need 9 million films
Right.
representing
Instead
the
about
working
noble
class.
CEOs making their noble product, we should have more of this, like
Yeah,
Air, BlackBerry, Tetris, even like all these, like, oh my God, enough with these noble CEOs, and it's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I'm a huge fan of the director when he's working in this mode. So I, Tonya is one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I just rewatched it last night, and
I need to.
I've seen it. Like I saw when it first came out, I was really into it. I was like, this movie fucking rocks. But like watching it last night again, I was like, this holds up so well. That like pseudo, I like that pseudo documentary style. And this movie kind of plays with it a lot more. I think that you almost feel like you're watching it. Feel like you're almost watching the things happen live rather than kind of like the more. I mean, because they're like they're older events than the than something like this, right? Where it's like this is 2 years ago. 3 years ago. Like,
Craig Gillespie, right? Is that that guy's name?
Gillespie. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of name recognition, but I just tend to link together I, Tonya. He did the first
Mars and the Real Girl, which I was like, who like greenlit this? This is crazy. Yeah.
But he Pam and Tommy, which was a Hulu series that caught a lot of flack, but I liked a lot. I thought it was quite good, and it had Sebastian Stan and Seth Rogen. He has favorites that he works with over and over.
Yeah,
he likes embarrassing Sebastian Stan. Like sometimes you have like a director that like really likes putting like almost like in a like an erotic way, like putting these actors front and center. I feel like it's the opposite with Sebastian Stan. He likes putting Sebastian Stan in the most embarrassing and like kind of humiliating real life stories that he possibly can, which he does so well. Like, don't get me wrong.
He's fabulous. I keep expecting him to become a lot more famous than he is. I mean, he's rising, but he's not that well known. But I love what sorry.
So
Fright
I was just going to add that he did that
Fright Night. I love Fright Night.
Yeah, which is way better than it needed to be. Like it's a remake of a classic. Like, why is this movie this good?
I thought it would suck, and I was pleasantly surprised. But
it sucks in a good way because it's vampires.
I like to link those three just because they take on it. All three of them are about being working class or regular kind of people who have these weird brushes with fame, stardom, what have you.
Sure. Yeah.
And you get to see, so suddenly they're rocketed up economically and as far as face recognition and all that jazz. And they have these completely bizarre experiences. We don't seem to do enough of that, in my view. A way of looking at the whole class structure. That would have been a very Dickens thing to do, for example. He did it in every novel where you usually start low and you go up and you come down and you have all of these insane experiences up and down the class scale.
Yeah.
To illustrate the whole experience and its deep sickness at every level. And Gillespie in his small way does this in several films. And again, where are all the other films? We should be inundated with these films.
It's more like all the aforementioned noble CEO films that I like some of them. It's all like, oh, everyone's just temporarily embarrassed superstars. They're not quite millionaires yet, And it's like, no, like that shouldn't be the point. Like, I think of all of those, the one that I think is the best out of those three that I mentioned was the Tetris one. And that was more just because it took like a slightly different take on it. But like Air was the most odious. So of course it was
awful.
I was like, oh my God. Like, first of all, not for me, just in general, like from a subject matter. But I was like, no, everything about this is obnoxious. Like there's nothing about this that is like it's the worst aspects of everything. Enough said about that film. But I think that you're onto something too, because I think one of the things that makes this story work. I mean, and this is weird because it's like we all live through this. We all live through this section of history. And it was not that long ago. So I think, and I've noticed that when people are presented with something, again, calling it ripped from the headlines, it is, that there seems to be a little bit of antipathy like towards it, just because it's like, didn't that just happen? And it's like, well, okay, because you're thinking about how you're engaging now. But it is, again, there's a reason why we picked it at the end of this, because this is like the one movie that we have where there's a little comeuppance. And it's only temporary, but it's like it's like, no, we can end it, end on a song, whatever, however you want to call it. And like we can feel good about things for a minute after basically going through it. Here's all the worst people and everybody learning the wrong lessons about, these are not good people to emulate and so on and so on over generations and decades.
And Ken Griffin is such like a part of that, right? Like his version of Wall Street. It's this more sanitized than, like, let's say in the 1980s version of Wall Street, but that's also because it's dug itself so far into our political and governmental machinery that someone like Ken Griffin can get absolutely grilled by a bunch of fucking congressmen, congress people, for a couple weeks and still like lobby his way out of. Because what he did, the collusion between Robinhood and Citadel Securities is not something that's supposed to happen. Like a market maker is not supposed to lobby the platform that everyone's using, which, obviously just looking at the face of it, democratizing the stock market was never something that was going to.
Oh, that's such an insufferable scene between those guys too. But it's played so well because, again, as you mentioned, Gillespie apparently likes to see Sebastian Stan just be like the worst and to squirm.
Don't
because like when you're watching that, you're like, what an insufferable ass. Jesus Christ. Like, even when you know it's coming, like, oh, he's a douche, isn't he? And like little scenes like in the party where it's like, yeah, I run an app, and it's like, no, I said your phone was ringing, and it was like, oh my god, amazing. And I have no notes, fantastic. But like he's so sleazy and scummy that it's not that it actually gets across a little better the idea, like, no, there at one point there were regulations that this kind of thing couldn't happen. But then we only let the most ancient among us rule us and make laws. Don't understand the internet.
100%. And that's a huge fucking part of this whole thing. And during the pandemic, when everyone's transferred to online, right? Everything, like everyone's looking for new hobbies. Like I remember, like even like my little brother got like into Robinhood because he's like, you can just bet on stocks and like normal people can do it. You don't have to know that much.
You don't have to pay a fee. That was a big thing because there are other apps and there are other sites and other people that whether the apps are any good or not, who knows? But like the thing was, in order to pay for it, they took a fee for every transaction. And some people would be like, couldn't afford that or they weren't looking for that. Their big thing is, oh yeah, there's no fees, which of course that the reporter, the woman playing the reporter accurately says, like, how will you make money then? How will that happen? Oh, well, don't worry, we're gonna do an IPO soon. No, that wasn't the question, dude. Like,
I love how fucking smarmy it is during that interview too. Because it starts out with the Occupy Wall Street thing, and she's like, "Is that what they wanted to do?" So that line already made me fucking die laughing.
Yeah, so good.
I love that he immediately goes to the identity politics angle.
Like, oh yeah. Whoa.
Yes. Like, well, we're
both immigrants.
And, we really wanted the American dream, and my friend's name is Beju. He's Indian, and you know what I mean. Like, and then that doesn't work, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna drop a scoop. And then that's the thing that obviously works with the dipshit press that like, even the people that are like smart enough to kind of get in there and be like, hey, how are you making money? Even those people can be kind of distracted by being like, hey, do you want my IPO? Don't we're gonna put this on background right now, but
right.
But I think it really is the most anxious among us rule, and as all of us kind of get more and more online, right, like more and more of the functions of. And the pandemic really, really, really exacerbated that. Like the fact that everyone's kind of sitting around, like nobody in Congress really knows what the fuck is going on online either way, right? Like, and I don't think it's just that they're old. I think it's also that a lot of them are just kind of clueless people that are put in there by money, but like
class based too, right? Like that's nothing new.
But the fact that they're elderly kind of just puts such a symbolic face on it. It's just like, well, you guys are not the one. Like, you guys are not going to regulate any of this, because I remember there was a Facebook. At one point there was like a Facebook hearing, right, when they're like, oh, China bought a lot of our data, and one of the fucking questions that they asked Mark Zuckerberg is like, how do I change my Facebook password?
How do I open PDF?
literally a city congressman. I was like, I would be so embarrassed to ask that to Mark. Like,
which, I mean, obviously his grandkids don't talk to him.
Well, there's a connection here too, because the book that this is based on, I guess, which I didn't bother to read because I do not like this author, but it's the same guy that wrote The Social Network, and this book is called like The Anti-Social Network.
Anti-Social Network,
clever. Okay, but it's notable for a number of reasons that we're in a situation where like generational change has slowly started to creep in. That you have people like Ocasio-Cortez and and her, like that very slowly there are some people like, no, they get it.
But for the most part, open PDF.
He does know how to open PDF. and that's a larger issue than covered by sort of media or movies or even sort of bottom up meme related financial market upheaval. It has a lot to do with connection and the fact that if in a class-based world, that most of these people they're making the laws are rich as hell. You know, it's very, very rarely. Ocasio-Cortez is the rare example of someone like, she has lived paycheck to paycheck. You know, and that's one of the reasons why. And when people harp on certain aspects of having these kinds of people in Congress, and that it isn't important or that it shouldn't be focused on. No, I absolutely disagree. I think you need more people that are creative and are people that are coming from a working poor situation, not even working class, working poor.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand what it's like to be poor, you will not understand the actual intrinsic effects that these policies have. And that is not a newsflash. Nobody's learning anything from that on this show, I'm sure, but it's absolutely worth reiterating. And I think this movie does a great job of showing that, as well as the generational thing. How many scenes are there where like someone is showing the parents, hey, look at all this money I have on here, and they're like, what? Like, how is that even on your phone? Like, what? Like, just that small amount of communication, and of course, I guess we have to get into the somehow Paul Dano and Pete Davidson are brothers. Okay.
You're the son of the Kurgan.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but like, just like that back and forth and how it's explained diegetically to the family and everything along those lines. That shows like the cross-cultural pollination and how certain things are understood intrinsically, and certain things are just like it does not compute. And then the first thing everyone says, well, sell it.
Yes.
Sell it. Get the money. Get the money right now.
You can. And you can't help as a viewer feeling exactly that tension. Like, Jesus Christ, just come on. You're in debt. You got a kid. You just get out. No.
Yeah. And it makes it multi-dimensional too with the kid, right? Like it makes it like there's real reasons for him to sell it.
Yes. To get out.
America Ferrer's character.
Get the kids some braces.
Which her character is a gestalt. Not based on a real person, which is good because that's the most heartbreaking story of them all. Because she's like the truest of the true believer. That's like no, I'm never selling, like holding for forever.
Oh, right.
And even though like and again, the audience is basically her buddy, who's this constant girl. What the hell are you doing? Sell right now.
Yes.
Supposedly there is a real nurse that was in that he wrote about in the book, but I think that was also like a composite.
Yeah,
but also the nurse.
But it's the closest to being based on.
Yeah.
Right.
But like the nurse in I guess the book was like a huge Trump supporter, and you can kind of see it in the movie too, where she's like, he's talking about Reddit, and he's like, last time you just showed me a bunch of pictures of Trump riding on a horse, and she's like, you loved it, and it's like. There's like I don't know.
I mean, to be fair, Forrest has always showed me those pictures too.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Those are pictures of Putin on a horse. It's totally
different. I'm just a fan of the human body. The thing with it is that I'm glad that isn't involved, because that was an actual distraction during the actual movement, which is to say that a bunch of people are like, yeah, like it's cool that like all these guys that are the worst people in the world are all suffering right now and they're losing money. But some of these people, like, I don't know, they're a bunch of weird libertarians. I don't want to support that. And it was like, you morons. Like, do you not understand how like a revolution that isn't literal pitchforks and torches in the streets work? Do you go check with everybody that's like doing a riot with you if you agree with their politics? Because
people would. Some of the people on Twitter definitely would.
Dude, I cannot. So I'm glad they didn't, because that would have made it a distraction, right? And that would be great. Now it's about this, and in the same way that so many movies that are otherwise more interesting are just gobbled up by a discourse that is just the same old pantomime, the same old choosing sides on the kids' soccer team kind of thing. And I think it would have been a distraction. And I like that the story's cleaner, and you get an aspect of the fact that anyone is let in. That's the thing about a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to participate. Idiots, geniuses, everyone in between. Like Pete Davidson, is almost like a Greek chorus in a lot of ways. Like sort of echoing like what the audience is thinking about. Like,
and much like real Greek choruses, it's full of balls. I laughed so hard. When he's like, "Your balls," because like in my mind, I wasn't thinking about the fact that the first comment he got is from balls.
From balls, yeah.
It's just nerds and all caps.
Yeah.
No, I think it's important to note there's solid laughs in this film.
Yeah.
Oh,
Really
it's
solid
very
laughs.
funny. Yeah.
That is
Like-
another reason I was bewildered that it did that badly. You know, thought at least some word of mouth would have got like, no, it's not only kind of sweet and endearing and blah, an underdog story, but it's actually quite funny. And it caught no got no traction whatsoever.
It would have killed in a crowd, right? It would have been, like there's lots of like great moments, even just when people are acting out, where it's like, but not in a way that other movies we covered where it's like, oh, that's what people remember is the acting out, not the consequences.
Yeah.
No names mentioned, Wolf of Wall Street. But
What did you guys think of the opening where they actually start? It actually has a flashback structure, which I had forgotten until I watched it.
Me too.
Again.
Yeah.
It starts with the Seth Rogen trying to knock down his other house to build a tennis court for his kids to play on during the pandemic.
Great.
Yeah, and it's great that when he actually has the meeting with Ken Griffin, he's like, my heart goes out to you having to rent a tennis court. There's so many signifiers across this that very much make the point that there's like a triangle to it where it's like on the bottom is the Seth Rogen Melvin Capital guy who's like, oh shucks, my grandpa used to say this stuff about borrowing, and then that's like definitely new money, definitely startup money, right? Like, and then above him is Gomer Pyle, who literally has the pig in his house, which is just like that's such a fucking chef's kiss kind of thing where it's like he's gluttonous and then he has this gluttonous pig running around his fucking house. That's how rich he is. And then you have like the Nick Offerman Ken Griffin at the top, which Ken Griffin is the one guy who saw this movie, got enraged, and told everybody in the media how much he hated it. Yeah, there's all these articles that like Ken Griffin hates his portrayal, but the fact that Nick Offerman got
made him so charming. It was the biggest fault with his portrayal. Then you see the real guy and you're like, oh no, he's obviously awful.
Yeah, it's an oily little. Yeah. Anyway,
well, and I think the Ron like the fucking Nick Offerman will always be like one with like Ron Swanson, right? Like in everybody's mind, and he brings that kind of like sleazy libertarian thing to all his portrayals. And in this, he like leans into it so heavily, and I like that a lot. Like,
which is funny because him and Mullally are total progressive activists as people, but like, I remember it was so good. Yeah,
through the Nick Offerman voice to like, he was like talking about like how we need to elect Hillary, and I was like, this feels off to me. I don't know. Like, I'm still with her, and I was like, this doesn't seem like you, man. Like,
yeah, but I think that this could have suffered a lot more from the aspects of so much of this is online, and that's just very hard apparently for filmmakers to depict. But I thought even just like looking at like our comment section, which are not super lively tonight, just the fact that like the aspect of like the real-time interaction with comments and things like that, right? That is, how many movies have we seen try and fail to do that?
Yeah,
it's like when people try to
do the same thing, like you always see that text message just flash up across the screen, and it's like, oh, that again.
It's rare to be done well,
and it got old fast.
Right. It's like that minor key acoustic version of the popular song in the trailer. It's like, enough, we get it, we understand. You're trying to build mood.
I feel like I feel like what really ran that rugged for me was like horror movies. Every horror movie, like the person gets like a text, and
the text,
and it's like,
that's right.
Oh no, it's like another text. It's like, oh no, too many texts. I do feel that though. Like I don't like getting a bunch of texts in a row. That's the scariest part. Is that somebody's reaching out that much? You're like, oh man, back off a little bit.
Well, but I think that like it's done well here though, and that again, if anybody had seen it, I think people maybe would have given it some credit because you have to, because that's the whole thing. Like this is like the public square is again one of the most pre Elon Musk takeover of Twitter. Rightfully hated online forums within our modern construct, right? Because it's not full of great people. It's not, and there's a chaos energy to it that honestly, the first time I was actually pointed towards something good was this. Like, and things like, they have like people would be so excited in the comments that they would try to type hold, and it'd be HODL.
Yeah,
and like so there was, and then that became like, and then a hodl became like the thing, and then
like there were rap songs. I remember that there was like a hodl rap song, and the guy was like hodl.
Well, Well, and then it became like an Ouroboros, right? Like it's like a snake eating its tail in that way, because then like someone like went a mad rant about like, oh, you guys are a bunch of a bunch of apes, and then like, yeah, we're apes. Here's a bunch of Planet of the Apes memes, and we're okay. Here we go.
There was a lot of and the movie really like kind of leaned into
in that meme culture way, right? Where something is absorbed and then turned back into energy to go back out. Which
there's a lot of embracing of people's autism, which as like we talked about with I mean, we talked about this with The Big Short. Like they wrote in Michael Lewis's book, right? He was writing about how like the financial market is kind of perfectly designed for somebody with like with Asperger's or with autism to kind of like actually do well in this market. This is another like I feel like the Wall Street bets kind of thing. It's a lot of people that aren't necessarily allowed into that Wall Street space, but still have like a hyper fixation on kind of following the market.
And they did really well, I thought. When it's deliberately shut down, and the like unbelief reaction of emotional heart stopping, like
and everyone's like, "Wah!" Exactly.
There's the whole thing is like it's rigged, and then you actually get a sign it really is rigged. Like
it really is rigged.
Like, they've shut down.
That was always Forrest's reaction when he got banned from Twitter, by the way.
this is rigged, and then they're like, oh man, but like there's almost like a because there's the 1-2 punch. It's first Wall Street bets got taken down, and they're like, oh, because there's like it's the same kind of weaponization in some ways of like the anti-Semitism kind of thing that you see with like other and like like that you're seeing right now. But at the same time, then
Robinhood makes it so you can sell but you can't buy, which is like okay, that is like. Hello, FEC. Anybody? Anywhere? No, nobody. That's okay. That's okay.
Well, I mean, one problem with that is that it takes so long. I feel like for the SEC or any well, I guess it was Biden's SEC, but it was like it takes so long for them to prove something like that, right? So like after like months after all of this, they released the texts that are like, oh no, they actually were in full conversation with Citadel, which is the
100% collusion.
Yeah, and this movie is good because it's looking at it with just enough distance, I think, like chronological distance that we can like know that 100% they were colluding with fucking Citadel, because that's a market maker, and like after looking up what that means, but like no, they send all of they send each transaction to Citadel, and then they get money each way for doing that, and because Citadel is Ken Griffin owns both a hedge fund and a market maker, which you're not supposed to own both of those things. We saw that a few months later with FTX. Sam Bankman-Fried owned both a thing that valued the cryptocurrency.
Turns out his values at high. Who knew?
And as well as also owning a place where you can buy and trade cryptocurrency. It's the same thing, but we look at it when it's crypto and we're like, oh, that's a scam. But when it's a hedge fund, we're like, oh, that's real money. That's different. He can get away with
It'd be like if I own Rolling Stone and name my own album of the year. It's like that same level of which. Hey,
if Rolling Stone's for sale, Conan's trying to buy it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like if you own Rolling,
I'm sure it's pretty cheap. No one reads it anymore. Did you see what what that dude like mouthed off of? Anyway, whatever. That's a different story.
No, it's like if you own Spotify, Rolling Stone, and had a band. Oh, look, you're the front page.
It turns out it's number one again for the 6th month in a row. Yeah, who knew?
But it's that level of collusion right there. Like it's that level of like it's crazy that you can own a thing that actually values the market and like which is what
Well, it's like the Bush era regulations, or rather deregulations, which is to say that other than like the thinnest gruel of Sarbanes-Oxley, even post what we talked about when we talked about The Big Short and the housing market crisis, the fact the entire global economy almost crashed because there's zero safeguards, and it turns out people were going to use these financial tools to make money. I'm shocked. Shocked I am. Like, come on. And again, what do you think if you have unregulated system? What do you think is going to happen? Well, look at cryptocurrency, right? Which is the thing that came after this. Oh, it turns out maybe wasn't such a hot idea. Maybe regulation, it's okay. Yeah,
which is why I think that a character like Keith Gill is so compelling too, because he's just so far outside of any kind of like financial institution. I mean, he was working at like Mass Mutual, like just outside of any of those things, just far enough that he's like, well, I thought this was supposed to be a level playing field. He bought into the idea. He went to college and like, you know, learned the textbook definition without all the rigging. And then his actual hypothesis is like, no, this is rigged beyond belief, right? Like, and we can actually squeeze the short sellers that are doing this to a company because the company is purposely undervalued. Like, don't get like, they're undervaluing it on purpose so they can rip it to pieces, right? Like they see it as a thing that they can actually, which I mean, since the 80s, like going through this whole month, right? Like that's exactly what fucking Gordon Gekko was doing in Wall Street.
Gekko's doing Wall Street.
Looking for undervalued, like things that he could undervalue so he could rip it to pieces. And it hasn't
Back
changed.
when Oliver Stone made good movies.
Yeah.
So G.G. Michael's getting angry right now. But no, like 100%, and like he's got like a certain everyman sort of appeal with it. The actual dude, and like that's one of the reasons why Dano's portrayal of him works well. You're like, yeah, I believe that like this guy could get like a bunch of people like, you know, rallied up around this and like, you know, working towards as absurd as it may seem to the outside world. And it just so happened like with all of these events concurring at the same time and all these other this hubris coming from these larger financial entities, that you could really be in a David versus Goliath situation that would have like this mass populist appeal that again has some of the dumbest memes possible with drinking their urine and like, you know, this and that and the other, and is messy because you know what, that is what populist movements are, is messy, not evil, messy. And then people need to understand that.
Well, it's also at a time when people had so much time on their hands, and that's like that's another thing that made it like made this moment kind of coalesce together. It's like COVID was happening, like of course some fucking crazy person's drinking their urine because the stock went up. Like, everybody's like,
I was doing this anyway. I like the taste.
Yeah, and I, you know, looking to, I still feel this way about kind of now a little bit. Like I think it's loosening up, but like there was a long gap where it's like the pandemic was kind of ending because there was the vaccine and people were like dying less, but at the same time it's still like this half thing, like people were going to college finally again, but like, you know, like it was kind of in this limbo, and I feel like in some ways we're still kind of in a limbo, like we haven't fully as a society recovered from that limbo, and of course COVID's still around, but like I think that this movie is peak kind of fucking limbo where people things got fucking weird because people are like, I don't know what the rules are here. I don't know. Like now I have the shot, but like people are still kind of afraid and not leaving their houses, and like there's all these kind of
GameStop is considered an essential workplace, and they have to mask up all the time. Constant reminder
because they sell mice and keyboards, right?
I like in this too. The mask is kind of used both as, I mean, like not that they're like kind of denying that COVID existed at this point, but like they're using the mask as like kind of a forced totalitarian thing in these within these like cultural things where it's like the teacher, right, doesn't want you to talk, mask up. Your boss kind of wants you to stop talking back, mask up. Like, the mask
although he was kind of into the whole like wait, is this a sexual thing?
Yeah, he took his mask off because he thought he could get some dick out of it or something.
one of the biggest laughs for me in the entire movie, both times I was like, amazing. That is like
I figured that they were gonna do something with that guy because he just looked so weird. Like he was just a weird looking guy.
Yeah, it was the guy from Stranger Things, right?
I might see him somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
You barely saw his face.
He's good. I like him.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring it back a bit to Paul Dano's character because
you're dressed like him.
Well, exactly. You're cosplaying as him. So you gotta.
Yeah, down to the kitty cat shirt.
Yeah.
You know, since Christina's not here, you know,
all right, stand. Let's do the Christina thing. Stand up. Let's do the shirt.
All right.
Oh,
there it is. There it is. Okay.
Oh, well done.
It is a good Roaring Kitty shirt.
Yeah. And I mean, since I'm usually wearing Western shirts, and this is kind of like a cowboy kitty, you know, I'm still on point. So there you go. But
and you're in your basement too, just like he was.
Yes, my wife's sitting right there cheering me on the steps.
I feel like Shailene Woodley like is such a good your wife that doesn't really get it but wants to be supportive character.
Yeah. But what I wanted to bring it back to was the fact that like he's from Brockton. Like you know, very specifically Brockton, because Brockton is not a much talked about suburb of Boston
until now.
It's on the south side of Boston. It
Welcome
is a
to the Brockton
blue-collar,
podcast.
working class town. But then there's also a lot of people who you know, there's like a good tax base of money because people who work in Boston actually come out and buy like the bigger houses. So it's a weird dichotomy. So that actually like afforded my great aunt to be the first chair of the Brockton Symphony Orchestra on the cello. So there you go. I got like a familial connection there.
You said you wanted to talk about Paul Dano's character.
But specifically that he's from Brockton, though.
And his relatives playing the cello. It's a whole thing. It's a geography lesson. What's happening here?
With your great aunt,
very importantly, because like Brockton and Easton, like it's very much a working poor kind of city, and it's full of people who have yes, there's the connection to Boston. Yes, some people do have money there, but like most people were like my family, like that are work, or like the dad who's what is
the Clancy Brown character.
The Clancy Brown character who actually nailed the accent. Shout out to him. And what was her name?
Kate Burton,
aka
yes.
Margot from Big Trouble in Little China.
Who both kind of nailed that accent, like very specifically. Like I was very happy about that because I know I was watching the menu and somebody was supposed to be from Brockton and she did not sound like it. And I'm like, come on.
I feel like it kind of, there's such a good
0 stars. Andy Roll, accent wrong.
That scene where he's saying run through the lightning with your dick out, right? Like that whole scene. Within that, he's like, oh, I just lost.
It's the chief activity in that town, actually.
Yeah. No, but like when they're talking, he's like, you're the richest man in Brockton. And he's like, I just lost $15 million yesterday. And he's like, yeah, but you're still the richest man by far. I felt like that was such a perfect distillation of like a working poor neighborhood. It's like, because I like thinking about like, oh, no one's really from here. Nobody, successful is from here. Thinking about like that mentality of it, then being like, yeah, but you're still like, just the fact that you've done anything, right? Like just the fact that you've made this money online, even like I guess hypothetically, right? Like you made this money online, it still makes you, the richest man in Brockton. Like,
yeah.
How many shots were there of the modest home of Keith Gill? There's got to be 5 at least to see how modest it is. Yeah, and
that's what the neighborhoods look like over there too. I gotta say, I was surprised that this was filmed in New Jersey whenever I found out, because it kind of has that feel. I imagine they filmed the exterior of the house like in New Jersey. Like they did a great job getting that street just right. Shout out to whoever the location scout is, because they nailed it. They understood the homework assignment.
I feel like the whole thing where it's the GameStop employee, which I don't like. I guess he's supposed to be kind of in the same area, I'm guessing, as as Roaring Kitty, but
it also doesn't like that. I mean, I know Andy has spent like 20 minutes or what felt like 20 minutes anyway, talking about local locations that would about this one city. But the idea is like this was happening everywhere, right? Like so like I like that again on what I thought was that it's a bigger budget I thought it had, frankly. They managed to get across that like that it's happening in multiple. And what's that guy's name? The game's Anthony Ramos, right?
Yeah.
That's I
thought it was interesting. Whatever one like GameStop is
an old boss of mine was named that, so that annoys me. And he was a brick, but whatever.
GameStop is obviously like a very chaotic company. Like they're talking about how it's had like 6 CEOs in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But like he asked his boss for the a small like advance on his pay or whatever. The boss like, oh, I would send that up the chain with 7 people, which is obviously a terrible way to run like a retail business.
Well, it shows the disorganization.
But then you see him on his phone and he takes out like one of those stupid payday loans that the interest rates are really high because they're just trying to gouge poor people pretty much at that point.
Which is still legal because again, no working poor people in Congress. So,
so I found that like interesting, the seamless way that technology is woven into our society. Whether it's somebody like like Seth Rogen's Melvin Capital character who's just sitting there on his fucking iPad all day.
Which, by the way, what a career that now he's like the big executive and not the stoner that's on the computer and doing the memes.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, that guy after this Melvin Capital crash, he just started another hedge fund.
No,
like the actual guy. But no, but I found it interesting, like the seamless way that technology is woven, whether it's at the top, whether it's somebody like Seth Rogen on his iPad all fucking day, not actually having to do very much because he's just he's just shorting things. You can do that at his breakfast table, or whether it's somebody that's like very, very working poor and like using like their phone to get themselves like a payday loan to take money out. into, you know.
Well, and you're hitting on an important point too, because something that I enjoyed the miniseries documentary, whatever it was. I enjoyed it so much I can barely remember what it was called or how I saw it. But whenever I saw it, I enjoyed it. Obviously, it had a huge impact on my life. But what I think the movie gets across more is the fact that it's not only people making money. It was a thumb in the eye of the system in the way that, again, the hodl, the misspelling of hold is like hold on to what you have and continue buying, because the more it goes up, the more they lose. Billions of dollars a day. And that has never happened on that level ever. And so it became more than just like, hey, we're having a collective action. We're doing things together this time that we cannot do anything together other than being a podcast, of course. And we all get to participate in something that really, sticks it in the eye of like the worst people in the world who have made all of us suffer for years and years and years. And just by not doing anything and like holding on to it, it's an action, which, by the way, if you want to really get collective action, make sure not doing anything is part of it, because you will join in every time.
That is a great point. Absolutely. But you're right. I didn't even call that out. That's exactly right. How do you even build unity now that you do any kind of political activity on the left and we come to it eventually? We no longer work in factories like millions.
Yeah.
There aren't any factories. We don't even see each other. We're all different kinds of workers.
Even at like a retail
this isn't
store.
Madawan, I mean,
how are we gonna
even
get
even
together?
at like the retail store, right? Like where they're you'd assume that there's people working together. No, at this point it's so bare bones that it's just the one guy and his manager. Like
and if you've been into GameStop, they're all like that too.
I've
persuade anyone to throw in with everybody else that they don't feel connected to, and this was a rare based on a true story illustration. Really rare.
And the brilliance of picking GameStop too is the fact that there is a bit of community around GameStop, like
that pre-existed,
that existed before. Toys R Us, you could argue, was the same thing, which is why people were so appalled by Toys R Us getting closed down and stripped apart.
Was that a Bain Capital? I should know.
I think that was Bain Capital. But I'm not positive.
I'll get my top researchers on it.
But the thing is like much like Toys R Us,
it was Bain Capital and KKR.
Yeah,
fucking nailed it.
GameStop has that same type of
exactly what you were talking about with putting people in Congress, right? Like Mitt Romney was
Mittens Romney.
Ran Bain Capital for that.
Hero of the left, Mitt Romney.
Friends with Kristen Cinema. Bipartisanship, folks.
Were they friends, or was he trying to get some Mormon strains?
He's like, hey, I understood you're bisexual.
Something
I do not want to see that biopic, by the way. I don't want to see any biopic, but I definitely don't want to see that one.
Something that I wanted to touch on though. One thing that I found interesting that I just learned when we were doing our Big Short episode, that was in this too. Those guys like Charlie and the other guy that was Charlie and Jamie. What they did is each time in the Big Short, they bought options, right? Like so that when the stock goes up, that's the same thing that that America Ferrera in this and the GameStop guy, because they don't have the money to actually put the money on stocks. They were buying the options.
The option calls,
so that if when the stock goes up or down, they get a payout, but they don't actually have to lose money.
See, if Margot Robbie was explaining it from a bathtub, maybe people would have paid attention.
Right.
Well, they didn't even really go into it that much. Well, they kind of did, I guess, with when they're in the garage and they're kind of explaining what their business model is in the Big Short. But like that is the same kind of thing that they were doing, that they ended up shorting the fucking AAA tranches because they were buying so many options on it that they would just get paid out.
And people are like, what? You're crazy. Yeah, that's like there's no way that'll ever go down, let alone go down to the way it would you would actually earn anything. And then of course they were correct about that.
There was some insane
but they were betting against basically the entire American society based on capitalism is what they were betting against.
Yeah, well, there was some insane story in the actual in the Big Short book where they got convinced that there was going to be a coup in Thailand, and so they bought a bunch of Thai currency and they put options on it. Said if the Thai market goes down, they would get a payout. So a couple of days later, there was an actual coup in Thailand, but because it was like an American or whatever, like Western backed thing where the generals replaced the president in fucking Thailand. So there was a coup, but the money didn't go down and they lost a bunch of money betting on Thai currency. And that was like one of those little details thrown into the Big Short book that I was like, This is crazy. It's crazy.
It's
that you can do
already-
this.
I mean, there's
It's
already
crazy
so many
can do
things you
this.
have to explain to
You're
get
like
across to people.
betting. You're like betting against the country, dude. Like that's crazy
Right.
that you can do that in like the fucking financial market.
Yeah.
And you can win, and you can win big doing it. But I think one of the things that gets across, I think, better in the film than it does in the documentary about this is this. Like, look, what did I say? Like, asking people to do nothing is like a winning strategy for collective action now. Aggrievement as well. Like,
Yeah.
F that guy particularly. Like that'll get people moving. And in that way, that like when people don't have to understand what option calls are and all these complicated terminology to know that like, hey, the people I don't like are losing, and the people I do like are ostensibly winning because of that by default. That like that's easy to understand. And again, you can understand it. There could be like videos of dudes drinking their pee, and there could be like memes and apes jumping around and like all that stuff. And there was. And I know it because I was following it eagerly and I was loving every second of it. I was like, fantastic. I can't believe this got me to come back to Reddit because this is I'm all for whatever this is that is happening.
The other big thing that actually led to the stock being valued a lot more is that one of his weird drug fueled tweet storms before he owned Twitter, Elon Musk tweeted GameStop goes up or something, and it jumped up because which is it's another thing that you should. Like we should be looking
before he absolutely he machine gunned his own dick off.
But it's another thing that like you think that we would look into regulating the fact that on social media you could just kind of tweet stonk goes up as like an Elon Musk figure and then it jumps up. You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing that like they lobby to be like, look, the market's fine, just leave it alone. It's like is it really fine? Like
but again, come back to like if there's money and things staying the way they are, then things will stay the way they are always.
Yeah. And there's nothing but money. And I mean, it's so hard just to have everybody come together just to do something like this, right? Like that's why there's a movie about it. If we were constantly able to do like a short squeeze, or if we were constantly able to bet against the system and have it actually go through and have everybody hold on to their money, which is real. I mean, the fact that they held is really the thing that makes it cinematic. The fact that
and that's the thing that made it that made it a historical action, right? Because people were, whether that was their stated goal or not, they were engaging in a collective action. And we just don't see that, nor do we get the opportunity to do so because everything's so quickly commodified. Look at Occupy Wall Street, right? Like how quickly did like the Matrix adjust to that? Like and every other aspect.
Let some of them in,
Yeah, right. Exactly. All they wanted was a seat at the table. That's what Robin Hood's provided. Is that all they wanted? I'm not sure if
it also makes it ironic though, because something like Robin Hood, where it's like, like a fake democratization of things. Yeah. Where like you also have to let people know terms a little bit and like let them know a little bit about the stock market in order for them to bet on stuff kind of blindly. And so it's funny that they use that tool against them, which is why they turned off the buy feature so fucking quickly. It's like, oh shit, we've given people an interest in this just enough that now they're kind of using it against the system that's actually backing us, that we didn't want them to know are backing us, but they are. Like Ken Griffin specifically.
Right. Yeah. And I like how they have to handle that in the movie. They have to all the scenes where the usual exposition dump has to happen, where they basically have to explain it to the viewers. I thought they did that better than almost any film I've seen. Like it's comparable to how they handle the technology better.
Yeah, so I have this clip from the screenwriter and the producer, who are both women, cool. Which I found kind of interesting. Both women that like aren't really apprised. They didn't go into this with the expectation that that they were going to completely understand the terminology. So it's kind of like they were letting the most people know universally about this. Another thing that's interesting that I didn't get a chance to say, Craig Gillespie, who directed this, his son was actually one of the people that held throughout this, and that's how he found out about the story in the first place. Nice. His son was like, and then his son got out just in time, I think, and made his money back. But it's like your dad's like a direct. I don't know if you're the one that I feel the most like, oh, I'm so glad that like somebody with money got more money.
just another story of the week. This is a story that tells us so much about why we are where we are as a culture, where we are going, where we could be going. It's also a profoundly human story. We just felt honored and excited to tell the story of the people who joined this movement, just regular people, not big hedge fund billionaires, although they're in the movie too, but regular people who came to this not necessarily as financial professionals, although lots of them really know their stuff, but because they wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. It truly is a David and Goliath story. It's about the little guy rising up, saying, no, this isn't fair. I'm not going to take it anymore. And we're going to use the power of our numbers to accomplish something great.
Yeah, I think it was a classic underdog story. We completely fell in love with Keith Gill and his character. I think it's so rare to see a kind of reluctant hero on screen. And I think we were drawn to that aspect of him. He's this ordinary guy who finds himself in completely extraordinary circumstances and more than rises to the challenge and inspires this army of people to follow him. It also is a story into one of the most galling inequalities of our time, which is income inequality. And I think in a funny way, this story explained so much of the anger that was out there and that was exacerbated during the pandemic, where you really saw people who had so much, people who had so little.
And the outrage of a certain portion of financial professionals profiting off of the suffering that was happening all around us, stores being closed, people losing their jobs, and somehow that making money for people just felt like a step too far.
Yeah, when we started writing this screenplay, it's funny. At first we were like, why is everyone talking about this video game store at the mall and why it's drawing all these headlines? And we realized that the story to us was really about value. And this idea of who determines value in a society, of a company like GameStop, but also the value of a human life. And I think what Keith Gill's point to some people was whether, why let people who have the most money in a society determine value?
He's a maniac. He's a brilliant maniac. We love Craig. We've been trying to work with him forever. There is no director better at capturing energy on screen. And we knew when we were writing the screenplay that we wanted it to fly like a bat out of hell. And we knew there was no one else who could do it quite like Craig Gillespie. He's incredible with music. He's incredible with actors. He's incredible with energy and story.
We basically have been stalking Craig for years. This is the third film we tried to get him to direct of ours. And we were actually writing another project with him, in his house with Post-it notes when this project came up. And he was he had invested in GameStop himself and was kind of interested.
Unsuccessfully, unfortunately.
But yeah, we're just, we love him. And I think a lot of directors, they never want to see the writer again. Craig is incredibly collaborative and let us stand behind him on set every day and give notes. And it was a great process.
Our own movie was that you can come to a theater and totally get and enjoy and take in the full experience of the movie, never having bought a stock, not knowing or even wanting to know anything about the stock market. That said, what was really what's frustrating about this and why a lot of people with great justification feel that the system is rigged is that information it's so technical, it's so complicated, and the true understanding of it is confined to so few people that it just feels like the system is rigged. In many senses, the system is rigged. It's impossible. And what happened in this movement, which is so powerful and so rare, frankly, is that people came together and they taught each other. So the movement built because Keith Gill had a vision, other people shared that vision, they swapped stories, they explained concepts to each other. It all built kind of snowballing on social media. And so I think that a powerful takeaway of this movie is the power of numbers, right? You can look and see it doesn't happen often. It may not happen again for a while, but a group of people who used to be invisible will never be invisible again because they joined together. They learned the basics of how this stuff works. They found a weakness and they went for it and they were successful.
Nice. It's a well-written movie.
Yeah, really is.
I mean, I was just looking up their other credits. I guess the one woman also did Orange is the New Black, which I've actually never seen, but I'm very familiar with. And I guess, and the other one is doing a film reboot / adaptation of Murder, She Wrote with Amy Pascal, who produced Little Women and the Spider-Verse movies. And
damn, who's going to be Angela Lansbury's character?
That's what I'm wondering. Who would dare, right?
Madness.
I feel like you get Helen Mirren to do it or something. I feel like that could be a Angela
June Squibb.
Yeah. she's like just getting ready to do it, and then she's like, and they're like, oh, I hope.
That's terrible. Come on.
Looking around, she's like, what? Like, oh, thank God. Come on, we gotta finish.
Yeah, we should talk. I think it's very effective. We're that the usage of WAP in here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very effectively ties it to a certain moment in time, right? I mean, like, and I'm saying that as someone that I'm usually like is oblivious of like the world of pop music, but that was absolutely like I know the month that was hitting big, so it was like okay, also hilarious because it's a like a different different kind of usage.
Yeah. Well, it's you gotta hold. You know what I mean? It's
I thought the music actually like it was not my cup of tea, but like was very sharply employed in the film.
Yeah.
Right down to Seven Nation Army at the end, which I do fuck with because that's a great song.
Yeah. Exactly.
The one I really liked the use of "Humble," the Kendrick Lamar song. But I liked that everybody in this in the story in some way. I mean, not the Nick Offerman character, but like everybody from like Seth Rogen to Pete Davidson and Paul Dano in the car. They'd be like they're all know the words to this.
Right.
It's like this collective thing where the same way that I think holding on the GameStop stock was this collective thing. It's like music kind of creates this collective thing for everybody as well.
It's a zeitgeist, right? And also and Andy mentioned Seven Nation Army, of course, which is able to be used in a non-sports related setting, actually, which is nice. The guy who did the actual score, also there was a television show called The Magicians that was some time back that I quite like. He's very interesting. Good use of I can't believe I'm saying this. I do anything for love, but I won't do that by Meatloaf.
Yes,
Meatloaf. which when I first heard, I was like, no, that's not. Is that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is.
I was just like, this music is not my cup of tea, but my God, is it like every song's picked perfectly,
consistently
like just great. Like so.
No, and the tension of using WAP at the beginning was so great because it reminded me of that great sequence in Office Space. Feels good to be a gangster.
Oh yeah. Where they're destroying the printer.
Copy or whatever. It was so nicely. It was such a nice counterpoint. It really.
The one thing Meatloaf won't do, he'll do anything for love, but he won't fucking sell his shares in GameStop. He's gonna keep holding. Meatloaf.
I think he died holding.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was I think it was Susan Jacobs that was the music supervisor, and there's a real thoughtful, I think it's Variety, there's a real thoughtful piece about like how she like decided that certain characters would be like would be paired with certain songs, things along those lines, and then also Savage, right? That was big on TikTok for a while. People were dancing, which I cannot effectively articulate how much that is not for me. To be clear,
way, we're now on TikTok.
They made such a good use of it with the game.
Great usage. Also, moving extravaganza now on TikTok. Not doing that dance.
We're releasing our Savage video this week too.
Usually we say that. Usually we say that as a bit, but this time
no, it's real.
No, the Savage video is a bit.
Christina's whole family is apparently on TikTok and followed our
That's what it is.
I liked also like when it wasn't needle drops, right? Like when they actually had music, there was some like pretty hype.
So that's what I'm saying. The score is the guy did The Magicians, which was a real like weird intelligent show that like kind of only like true heads know, but like well written enough in a genre that it's literal magical realism. So if that's not your thing, miss it. But like it was well composed. Like the music was like notably good in that, and I was pleased to be like, oh, it's that guy. Cool, that's awesome.
The sequence that I that comes to mind when she goes Shailene Woodley is like, go make a video, see what they think online, and there's like this really like this ambient kind of EDM thing that's like really hype that he runs downstairs and he's like, oh shit, and he like runs out of the room and he puts on the headband and he's like and he gets the fucking tendies out and everything, and like I was like, that's a very good use of that kind of like I feel like that music a lot of times they kind of push that kind of music for like the background of YouTube videos when they're like, oh, use something that's copyright free. I thought that was a really good use of that.
So Will Bates, the composer, he like largely like most of the time that Dano's on screen, like there's have like those scores where it's like something specifically melodic for him, and I think that's done very well because that could be like whatever Peter and the Wolf. It's nothing new, right? But it's like
yeah.
like but I think it's done in a way that it also suits him operating in an online manner, like you're saying, like avoiding like copyright takedowns and things like along those lines, right? You know, that's great. That's a little
which
little bit for the true heads.
The Roaring Kitty YouTube page, by the way, is still up as like a perfect monument, and he hasn't posted on it or anything because he dropped out. He took his money and he dropped out of public life, which I think he got the best
God
of all
tier.
worlds.
Yeah,
well, he kind of got the best of all worlds because he never gave up on holding, but then he did end up getting his money out at the right time and then dropping out of public life. That's kind of a perfect,
really
perfect 2-week run.
All you can do is like sully that legacy at that point. You can't like, you know,
Yeah, he's going to be going on CNN or CNN Money to talk about stonks and stuff.
And he 100% could have used that to like sell cryptocurrency, and he didn't, and that's why he's a real hero.
Yes. One up on Spike Lee, right? So
and I do like that the movie is so into like the amounts of money because it matters, because now we're among working people and it actually matters. So not only is it like $1 billion a day going, but it's like, it's a little heartbreaking when, the America Ferrera character at the end is down. She's not as in debt as she was, but she's still in debt and she's still holding. You see what everyone's got.
Net worth, the net worth is displayed on the screen.
They also use it to really good use, even in like the first couple scenes when you see the difference between like the Gabe Plotkin fucking guy that they kind of send out there to be like the face of the hedge fund, like with institutional money behind him, and then the difference between him and then the creepy.
His problem is he can't level that house to make his private tennis court.
Yeah, but he's richer than all of us, but he's still not like Ken Griffin, right? Like it kind of builds up this triangle where it's like each person is kind of throwing money into the other ones. Hedge fund managers, which is the same kind of thing with The Big Short. With we were looking at like the Steve Eisman kind of like the Steve Carell character in that, right? Like what they call him, like Michael Baum or whatever his name wasn't that, but like that character, his hedge fund had money going into it, but that money was from Deutsche Bank, a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like, or from Morgan Stanley.
Well, but I think so that's one of the things that makes this film unique, and even again unique amongst most of the other ones we cover this month, is that like it really does show like that like these working poor people where like they chose to engage in this collective action, and they chose to do so even knowing that they could change their lives completely and utterly. By just like taking the money. Take the money. And they chose not to, some to their own detriment. And then but then also how nice is it when you get the Anthony Ramos character and like that really kind of confusing of like, oh, is he quitting? Is he like what's happening? And then he's like, he cashed out. It was like, okay, cool. And then he does some dumb dance and whatever. People like that, but I get it. He was in Hamilton. People like that stuff. Not many people.
Well, a lot of these, I mean, so that
narratively it worked, even if I'm not into TikTok dances. Thank you.
I mean, so that they didn't have to like, it's the pizza party kind of thing, right? Where these jobs always set up like well, I assume, I don't work jobs, but like, but these jobs always set up.
Understand that
these like corporate competitions, because it's like you can pit all the workers against each other to do this, and then you don't have to pay them all some fucking bonus. You can just pay the one guy that wins that contest, which this creepy manager watches through all those TikToks. Like, I made them all dance for me.
Yeah.
Later, he's gonna give me a short squeeze. That was like one of those moments of that movie that I think was funny, but was like uncomfortable enough that the second time I watched it through, I kind of just skipped over that part. I was like, I don't want to see his manager fucking get his face like that again. He takes his mask off and everything. He gives him COVID.
See, I've watched that scene just isolated because it's so deeply uncomfortable and hilarious. Yeah. It's like, I mean, that's amazing to me. Like, I feel like the whole like characters, like this whole narrative arc was the build up to that. Where it's like, because again, that's sort of making a meta-aware action of the fact that like people don't know what short squeezes are. Even now, ask the average person on the street. They'll be like, was that the thing with the stuff with the stock a while ago? Like, has something to do with Reddit? I don't know.
I don't know. Is it like groping a midget?
right, I'm sure.
Sorry.
The Andrew world, everybody. I'll be here all week.
It's the one scene in Wolf of Wall Street where they
I think you're gonna say Time Bandits.
Return of the Jedi. No.
Yeah, maybe we should go back on Reddit. We're killing it right now. Thank you.
Well, what I like about I wrote it in another review. It was actually about a Coen Brothers movie called what was it? Inside Llewyn Davis, where the precise dollar amounts matter. Like Llewyn Davis is constantly trying to get an exact amount of money that he needs to pay for another girlfriend's abortion, or he needs for this, or he needs for this. And it's cobbling together little bits of money that it's so crucial when you don't have a lot of money. And so I have a lot of respect for movies that will get into like, what is it exactly going to cost you? What exactly do you need? And you hardly ever see it named. And I was wondering if in all the films you were watching, how much attention is paid to like specific dollar amounts, because you were dealing with the financial theme.
Well, in The Big Short, they do. But at the same time, like by the end of it, everyone's making so much on.
Yeah, it's all astronomical. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like this where it's actual like you like kind of pay attention to the dollar amounts. I mean, I guess the two guys that are buying options rather than Charlie and Jamie or whatever. That's where it's kind of important, because they've gone through the whole thing saying, well, we turned like $130,000 into like $5 million or something, and that's there. And then they still want the seat at the table, and they're like, yeah, we're not giving you a seat at the table for $30 million that you've made at this point. Like, get out of here. Like, that's nothing.
Right. That's their like entry into like the big boys table on that too. Yeah, and obviously like talking about something Glenn Ross, like it's much smaller stakes of first prize, second prize, third prize, right? No, you'd rather end up with a set of steak knives than you're fired. And you see that in the cold desperation between all of them, especially the Jack Lemmon character, and how they end up having to act out on all of it in different ways, different layers of confidence. And I think that for the most part, when you start talking about like look at the not cool guys to be emulated role models that are happening here, it's all abstractions, right? And if it is, it's like with the trappings of Jordan Belfort and his yacht and like the cars and again like this sort of like trappings of like what people think of as success based upon that like abjectly, quite frankly, boring misogynistic metric that is with zero creativity of any kind. Just like these are I ascribe it to, and this is a dated reference, but lifestyles of the rich and famous, right? That show was absolutely poisonous to American culture in a lot of ways, and not the least of which is that like this idea of this Reagan era opulence and yuppie mindset and things along those lines that turned into like a post-ironic appreciation of that, which is like, no, but you're still an asshole though.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're being ironic about it, you're still being an asshole.
There's that great Pete Davidson line where he's like looking at the conspicuous consumption of the billion and going, why do we hate these guys?
They look cool.
All that shit.
But then as much as that character is like, and perfectly and there for good reason, because again, you have to, the story isn't honest if you don't have that character there. But then by the same token, like he gets in the car, right? And he gets to have like that nice, like, consumerist, like, now I will be happy because I have the thing that I want.
Well, to be fair, he got him a pair of sneakers, and Paul Dano's character is not that, it's not that materialistic throughoh this.
Well,
right?
and they built it up with taking his brother's car, then having to use his mother's bicycle. There's a long build to it, at least.
Which I think was also perfect because although he's like the protagonist of the story and you're rooting for him, like really thinking about it, like the successful brother is just kind of a broker at Mass Mutual, right? Like the local branch of Mass Mutual. Like that's like they're like, wow, we're so proud of you. You've done so well for yourself. And it's like by any metric of looking at these other
and then isn't he like, well, I'm an essential worker, I do DoorDash.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh well, like his DoorDash work, they're like, oh, that's not real work. But working at Mass Mutual, that's real work, and we're proud of you. And it's like it's such a small range of things, right?
But
like,
then he has there's that weirdly long scene at the beginning where he's meeting with the other friend, And he buys the 50-cent beer that's actually a good
Hams.
versus a Heine. And it's a long ass scene.
They just picked Heine out of because it's really fun to say in like a Massachusetts accent.
Heine.
Well, once again, we know the exact price of the goddamn beer.
Right, exactly. No, and it's like a big deal. And then because then the I can't remember the waitress name, but like then she's like, well, and he's like, well, really, why are you gonna go with him? Because like, again, the whole interaction and that you're like, why are they talking about these beers? Like, what is like the point of this? And then you're like, oh no, because it's like if he's that confident with this, then I believe that like I would go with him. There you go.
Right. Well, and you also get the levels again that you guys were mentioning, but at a lower level because the friend is clearly concerned for Keith Gill not doing well, even though comparatively in that community and to his family he's doing well. You're constantly getting this. What does he mean?
And the friend is like the one guy that's managed to be successful enough to work at one of these. But you have to imagine that like he's still not. I mean, he wouldn't be one of these like high level, high powered banker people, right? Like, he's just one of the guys probably on one of the trading stock floors. Like they're like, this guy is really successful. He's probably
at the
not
beginning of like Wall Street and Wolf of Wall Street, like that.
Well, and like I said, I've when I've done day job stuff, it's always been technology. It's always been engineering for the most part. But like, I worked in financial services. They're dudes, just like that guy. That like, oh, you want to go to lunch? No, because I don't want to be associated with you and like perving on the waitress or whatever.
Right.
Just cringy bullshit you're going to be doing.
That we had the way it was all fed through that the waitress that she's kind of hot and she likes Keith Gill better and because he's interesting and all that. Yeah, there's really nicely constructed scenes like that are they're actually working more complicated angles than you'd think, given it's also it seems superficially simple, but a lot of movies lack exactly that, and really nice. I just saw Challengers and I hated it so much, so that's why I'm embittered because it had almost none of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's
Zendaya happens so hard too. Like
my interest in Challengers is that it's the first movie that's actually been written by the husband of Celine Song, who did that really amazing Past Lives. That movie is incredible.
Oh yeah. Who's in that character that is the boyfriend in Past Lives is the guy that actually which Past Lives is great. Eileen, if you haven't seen it.
I still haven't seen. I know I need to watch it.
Past Lives is stellar, but he's kind of the butt of the awkwardness and the joke the entire time, right? Like she stayed married to him in real life, and they're still competing over scripts.
Well, she hasn't seen the movie, dude. But
it's all right. It's all right.
I said it's still her husband, though.
Anyway, it's a great movie, and it is. I forgot about that little tidbit that like that is that actual dude.
Yeah,
the real dude made that movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is first. So that was her first like movie that she made, and this is his first script that it's the Luca Guadagnino guy that did. I have no real interest in seeing it really, but like
I only want to watch it just so I can understand the memes.
Oh, I know. There's a ton of memes.
I like the memes are going over my head, and I'm like, I don't know.
And it's doing super well. It's making money.
Well, it's the same. It's the Call Me by Your Name guy, right? Like it's that.
I like. He also did the Suspiria remake, but I Bones and All I actually quite like. I thought Bones and All was pretty good. It's the best movie about vampires that is not about vampires that I can think of in modern history. It's about cannibals instead. But like I can't say my main person of this thing necessarily. It's like, oh, that guy's interesting. But then like, I don't know. Like there's a lot of where can I go with this? I think there are people that get a lot of work that are just fine. And that is what I will say about that.
That is very fair and measured of you.
Uncharacteristically measured, yes.
I was taken out of the only character that really took me out
of Dune 2. Thank you. Anyway.
The only character that really took me out of Dune 2 at any point was Zendaya's like regular, like her accent seemed very regular, right? Like it's her as like an actress, and it's like it's kind of hard to see. Like I wish she had done something more with it.
I mean, the trade-off is that her story is a little more interesting than it is in the book, and I think it works in the context of that film. But in general, I think there are people that get a lot of work where it's like, wow,
Yeah, and Challengers is clearly a referendum on her stardom. Can she carry a film? And she's carrying it. And she's great looking.
Yeah, what do I know?
She's mesmerizing to watch. But you're right, acting level, it's very even.
I mean, I actually saw her Disney Junior show or Disney show, whatever it was I was watching. She was with Kadeem Hardison, like a family sitcom on Disney before she kind of broke out. And like honestly, I'm sorry.
That's where she's from, right? Like she's like one of the Disney.
She's from that world.
Yeah. That was kind of her big break, and I saw that, and I'm just like, okay, this girl has some talent because she's holding down a sitcom. With Kadeem Hardison, you
can't make sitcoms anymore, according to Jerry Seinfeld.
There's no such thing anymore. You never see any anymore.
But so like maybe she just hasn't quite figured out how to be a movie star.
I think she's a star. It's whether you can be a star and not be a great actor.
It has happened.
Compulsively watchable. And
I mean, I'm a big Schwarzenegger fan, so you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, but then, and again, I don't want to like detract too much from it, but like I think but he's like Gosling. Ryan Gosling was part of the Mickey Mouse Club, right? And again, I went from being like Ryan Gosling agnostic to Ryan Gosling inquisitive to being like, all right, this guy's rad.
We've all converted at this point.
Yeah.
We've gone full Gosling.
We've gone full Gosling.
You never go full Gosling.
I will be there opening day for the Fall Guy. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can't wait. That's gonna be great. Yeah. What we said on this very show is it's the perfect thing. Like, first of all, in remake culture, period, full stop. But the Fall Guy was cool, but it was only okay. It wasn't like some great feat of like storytelling or where it's like, great, that's what you should do, and find something that was like, oh, that was pretty good, and that was like a cool idea, and like let's do something. That's what you should do.
And Lee Majors is in it too, so I'm excited to see what he does.
Fantastic
because he's always great. Like I'm sorry, Lee Majors underrated.
Lee Majors fan. Now we know how to think about you.
You speak up boldly
on behalf of Lee Majors. Wow.
All right. By big Lee Majors.
Lee Majors, you say. Lee Majors, come on the show.
This show is brought to you by
Lee Majors. Yes. Yes, Letterboxd, of course, is a social media site for film lovers to talk with and to each other about things like Lee Majors and things that are not like Lee Majors, and many other things as well, including the movies that people love, maybe the movies that they didn't love, maybe the movies that they were confused by somehow. Really? Is that confusing? I didn't think it was that confusing in this one personally. But and of course, all this is best expressed succinctly. It's a bottom-up democracy. Everyone gets to have their say, but you keep it short, keep it tight, keep it succinct. And that's what this is. We collect the reviews, put them online on the screen, and talk about them and laugh at them. And these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Dumb Money. Let's go. We sure showed those rich people for like 2 weeks that one time.
That's pretty good.
Sure.
I mean, it happens, and that's why I said that like trying to find like some overwhelming point that goes through time or whatever isn't necessarily like what this movie should have done in the end, but like it's a great time capsule. Like I feel like
it's a deadly effective time capsule to the point that it was hard not pulling one that was someone bitching about like having to remember this time. I'm like, what do you want? Like, come on, like this is like you have to articulate that. We get it. It's a tough time. We were all there, idiot. Thank you.
The only people that aren't bitching about that time are the people that got a little bit of money out of the GameStop thing. They're like,
exactly. This is all right by me. It's all right. Spot on casting choice. Paul Dano is exactly what I pictured for a basement Reddit cult leader.
I don't know what made me realize it in this. I realized how much he kind of looks like Nathan Robinson. Like he could play Nathan Robinson if they ever made like a Current Affairs the movie.
Yes, you're right. He could. I have a hard time with Dano sometimes, but I loved him in this. He does kind of flat-faced and sweet really, really well. I thought.
Yeah, I see Godzilla's coming.
DoorDash is a real job. I'm a first responder.
That line cracked me the fuck up. He was like,
yeah,
like kind of, but like no.
Right. A feel-good comedy on how we'd all be better off if bankers and billionaires were hung from nooses.
Yeah.
Well, yep.
Yeah.
Be there.
About time.
Sure would. Yeah.
I like though that like, I mean, Nick Offerman plays Ken Griffin like a huge fucking asshole, which is what he is. But like, you do feel some kind of sympathy for Seth Rogen's like bottom of the fucking totem pole thing. But it's crazy that he was just able to just make a new fucking hedge fund. Like,
I actually really like the scene. The scene where he bails out on like the hit on the cable news, like at the last second.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that in any other movie. Like I thought that was actually pretty well done. Like,
yeah, I
well,
agree.
Seth Rogen is so good at like he's so good at being like anxious and sweaty.
Yes, he is. It's his specialty. Yeah.
So you know it's human over there.
Well,
right.
And but I feel like even in like Pineapple Express, which you know, he's the whole movie he's having a panic attack and he's talking to James Franco and he's like, I'm freaking out, man. Like,
right.
He's so good at doing different levels of panic. Like in this movie, he's just sweating and he's kind of freaking out and his heart's racing. Like, tell his heart's racing. But in that, and like he goes between that and like, oh man, oh god, oh fuck. Like,
you're right, he does. It's very much in his skill set. An intriguing film that depicts the most important historical event of the last 10 years. I can't fault a film that contains the phrase, listen up, retards.
Oh, wow.
I love the can they say that? Like that is right now I feel like that's one of the few words that like people still say, but like some people get angry. Like it's one of those weird words that's in limbo. Like with whether you can say it or not.
I definitely I purged it from my vocabulary where I'm not reading something as a bit. Like but it took a while. That one was tough.
Yeah. It's such a like an easy word to like someone's stupid. Because
look, if you're a kid in the 80s, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you it was like. Yeah, it was part of the lexicon, no matter what. Let's put it.
Yeah, just like every other word out of my mouth in the '80s was that.
Yes,
they were also calling themselves that, which is like it's like a different thing too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I found that in
Wait, your balls? Best twist of this century.
That was inspired.
The face that he gives, he doesn't answer him, and the face that he gives is so like panicked in that moment. Where
Yeah.
Like, it's also like it's so relatable to be like a YouTube person on YouTube or like to be doing that, and like there's always like that one dedicated hater, and like somewhere in your mind, like your worst or not worst nightmare, but like your conspiracy thought is like, is this somebody I know? Is this somebody that I know that's dedicated to not liking me, but you'll never know because they're anonymous? Like, so for it to be like his brother, it's like.
And the thing is they telegraph it too, because the whole movie is calling him a nerd. Like, which is great because whenever it comes out, it's like all the pieces fall. It's like the
of
end
course that's who it would be, right?
Yeah. It's like watching the end of Usual Suspects when all the pieces fall together.
Well, he goes live. He goes live and immediately balls as the first person on his YouTube
chat. He's already talking trash. Talking that trash.
Like you know that he has notifications on for his brother going live, so he can talk shit. Like, but it's like almost like validating in that moment. Like it's like if you're like, oh yeah, like your coworker is a bitch. Like yeah, the guy that's calling you a nerd, that guy is just somebody in your family that's dedicated to hating on you.
A. Talia Ryder, marry me. B. Where's Pete Davidson's Oscar? C. Paul Dano's sweet revenge on Seth Rogen for sleeping with his wife.
Yeah, Fableman's was the first. Fableman's was the first thing that I thought of too with this. I was like, oh man, Paul Dano and Seth Rogen are going head to head again. Like,
yeah,
that'd be a weird twist for this movie if Seth Rogen took his wife at the end of it. I may have laid out the stonks, but you got my wife.
He's like the first thing Paul Dano does with the money is he buys the monkey. He's like,
right, exactly. I so desperately want to put it on screen, but I know I might mess up the bit, so I'm not going to. But I'll do it later. My dad did not get the TikTok references.
Is that a combined like her doing the review and her dad? It's like my dad didn't get it, but I did, so 3 stars.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's with dad is what's tagged, so you have to ask her. YouTube streamer rights.
It is they do the best thing with like the chat things I think of any movie I've seen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. it's usually bad. So can we start a GoFundMe for Stonk Mom?
Stonk Mom, I know your heart does go out to Stonk Mom. Yeah,
yeah. America Fiera was phenomenal.
She was great. In fact,
yeah.
Several people I think give their best performances that I've seen. I think Gillespie's great with actors. Just
I was thinking that I rewatched I, Tonya last night. As I said already, but I was thinking about that as I was watching it. Like Margot Robbie gave such a good performance with him as a director.
Allison Janney is the mother. Sebastian Stan and what's his name? Paul Walter. What's his name? Hauser.
Oh
who
yeah.
do the kneecapping?
Yeah.
Oh my God, he gives the greatest performance. That guy. That was where I was first like, who's that guy? He's just brilliant.
Also, the America Ferrera scene with the gas station. That's a really good encapsulation of like being around people during peak COVID of just like where it's like awkward and kind of directionless, but like emotion filled at the same time. Like, we're just like, it's like, oh, that's a great scene.
She also has a dedicated fucking hater.
Right.
Her nursing friend, like, your kid is never getting braces.
You're never going to meet a man on this thing.
What sold me on this movie, the moment that sold me, that I was like, all right, this is pretty funny. When they're doing the whole Puff Daddy back and forth, he's like, this is not Puff Daddy, it's Loot Daddy. And throughout COVID, the first 4 or 5 months of COVID, I was like with my ex, and we were watching Loop Daddy streams every fucking day, every time he went live, because it was a guy that has a loop machine, and he'd have people call in, and then whatever they called in about, he'd do a song on his fucking loop machine about it. Like, it was so fucking good. And so everyone was like, but like people were watching it on Facebook, like everybody, like a lot of people that I knew that were like into raves and stuff, they were all watching it on Facebook at the same time. We'd all comment on it, be like, oh look, there's like Aaron, the guy I know that like that I've gone to raves with, like he's on here too. And it felt like a collective moment of like, this was like right when
what was that? Mark?
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah. And
that guy's great.
I saw somebody on Twitter hook him up with Ice-T, and Ice-T loved it, and it was one of the coolest things I ever saw on Twitter.
Really? He also got hooked up with Reggie Watts.
That makes sense. Sure. Yeah.
So they were like when COVID finally fucking stopped.
Yeah, those dudes would be like next to each other on the record bin when the record store.
Yeah. Well, so they were next to each other in this guy's house, because he moved to like a bigger house because he made so much money doing the loop streams that he got to move to like a nicer apartment halfway through the pandemic. I really watched a lot of these streams.
Wow.
There's more information than I expected.
One day Reggie Watt was just in his house.
And I mean, Ice-T's Twitter, by the way, is just absolutely wholesome.
Absolutely. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for. I'm trying to get out of this bit. Is that okay?
Right.
Okay. Those are Letterboxd one-liners for Dumb Money. Please follow the show at our Letterboxd HQ account at Movie Night Extra, where we're covering and posting stories for all the movies that we cover here. Lots of related information. According to that, lots of extra content. At Always Flacco, Stonk's going up. Forrest over there, he's your host. He's logging all the stuff on Letterboxd as well, and you can follow him, find that out. I am Diamond Hands Conan Neutron. Goddamn right. I am doing all the highbrow stuff, the midbrow stuff, the populist fare. Follow me with the Criterion Challenge, film school dropouts, all that good stuff. And I will be doing that. J. Andrew, shitballs world down there. Financial advice should be followed by no one. But if you do follow him, you will find all the weirdest stuff in the world. And, it's not for me to say whether that's a good use of your time, but he's doing it either way. And he is glad to lead you on that journey. And that's the way it is. Let's hear over our sponsor and then do the plugs. How about that?
Wait, I wanted to say, now that you've like finished a bit, Andy, did you see Keir Starmer go off on how his 15-year-old son followed Ice-T on Twitter, and he's like this foul-mouthed American rapper and actor Ice-T, my 15-year-old was following and started saying some of the words that Ice-T was saying, and he was freaking. He put out a whole statement about it.
Oh,
it was
man,
one of the
that's
funniest
ridiculous.
Fucking, you got to look that up. I feel like
because his Twitter is just absolute wholesome. Just like like somebody, he went to McDonald's and like met a fan. And the fan posted the picture, and he just reposted it, going like, "Yeah, I go to McDonald's sometimes."
He also posts a lot about how much he loves his wife.
Yeah, no, it's just
it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's a wholesome account.
But I think so little stuff's going on in the UK right now that Keir Starmer had to put out a whole statement on it. It was hilarious. But anyway, here's our sponsor. Tonight's podcast is brought to you by Jebiga, a Balkan Rakia spirit plum brandy that brings Serbia to the American shores in an authentic and appreciative way. care of Billy Gould, bassist for Faith No More, and Rakia Appreciator. Rakia is a traditional spirit enjoyed at weddings, funerals, and life events. However, more and more it's being enjoyed everywhere on a night out with friends or as a casual drink. Get a bottle today in liquor stores and bars across America. Go to yabiga.com to see where it's available near you.
All right, shitballs, take it away.
All right. You're watching us on YouTube. Please do the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. Leave. I already said leave a comment, but we're gonna leave the comment again. Leave another comment.
Leave two. God damn it, we earned it.
Yes. But the big ask is to watch the video to the end, because that actually allows other movie fans to find our content. But that also allows you to hear that great Conan Neutron song, which this is the last episode we're playing it on.
Last ride for Monday Night Extravaganza theme. You're right.
Yeah. So enjoy it. I think it's one of your best.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, so if you can do all that stuff, that'd be great. If you're watching us over on Twitch, do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe for free. That doesn't cost you a penny, but that actually helps out the channel a lot. So please go ahead and do those things. Find us on social media. We're on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and now TikTok. So check us out over there. Where I guess Forrest is going to be making that video that I was teasing earlier with that song. Whatever the song was.
I'm a savage. So
yeah. There we go. See, now I got the clip. We can go.
There you go. Yeah. Put it on TikTok. Why not?
Yes.
I've seen Subiter stuff and lately.
Yes. We have a Discord. If you like our shenanigans, find us over there, and we're having really great conversations about movies, and you can hear stuff like Conan brought to my attention Hundreds of Beavers, which I know Eileen just covered on her.
Yes.
Fabulous.
But
anyone that will listen, I will tell about this movie because it's wonderful.
It looks really funny.
You're doing this show.
Yeah.
Why not? We've done dumber movies.
And dumber money.
Yeah.
Keep it rolling.
That's right.
Keep it rolling.
That's right.
But yeah, find us over there on Discord. Follow us. I think we still have a link in the comments. So go ahead and do that. We have a Patreon if you want to help out the channel directly. That allows you access to our after parties, which we've got some great ones that we've done in the past. So if you want to see more content with Andy Kindler, you can actually go on there and get we got more content with Andy Kindler. Go.
He was eating up that Jerry Seinfeld thing. He was going on with it.
We had Eileen at one point. I was doing we're doing dueling Dennis Millers. It was pretty great.
Yeah.
Say it's like that's something I never envisioned for myself in my podcasting life. Here we are.
Yes. But yeah, you can get access to that by joining our Patreon. Conan is over there, fronting his Protonic Reversal, which is he's been just celebrated his 10th anniversary.
Decade 1 made it through. Yes,
with a major show with like 6 million guests.
Oh my god, yeah. So 10-year anniversary show was this week. I had Ian MacKay, Steve Albini, Dwayne Dennison, the Jesus Lizard, Jennifer Finch L7, Dale Crover of Melvins, Marty Stern, Paho, Dave Paho of Gang of Four and Slint, Bob Burt, Sonic Youth, John Schmershel, Brainiac, Mike Boraski, Still Batham, Alan Johannes, Queens of Stone Age, Andrew Falco, Falcus of Mal Klusky, and Cody Willis of Murder Shady Devils, Big Business, and like 17 other bands I don't have time to mention. But yeah, it's epic. It's 3 goddamn hours long because I can't do anything small apparently.
Wow.
And it's now available for the general feed, but usually Patreon /Controversial $1 a month. Early access is those are the vibes. But I am taking this next week off.
Oh, good idea.
Because that was a goddamn lot of work. Great cover image by Andrew World on that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's fantastic. It's 10 years. That's incredible.
It's like a lot.
Yeah, that's
300 in podcast years.
Yeah,
that's like I was gonna say 3,000 episodes in podcast time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you enjoy the music on the show, you can actually get more of Conan's music. If you
and it sounds nothing like that, but you certainly can. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Conan has like such depth and to the fact that he can do so much. But there's such variety of stuff. But you do have there is a certain je ne sais quoi of Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, which is
this music for the intro is Conan if he sold out. Money.
Yeah, exactly. That's a fun one to write actually, because that's what I have the idea. It's actually the rare time they've had Not this like inside the soundtrack artist studio or anything, but I was like, what is like this is all about the same thing. It's like the acquisition of like money and greed overall. So why don't I just make that the central thing? I moved back from there. So it was fun to write because of that, because I wrote music around that, and that led to some really interesting decisions. But my band doesn't sound like that. But Conan, Neutron, The Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Bandcamp Friday coming up, touring coming up the Midwest for there it is, with Part Chimp and Arc Ray Noise Quintet, Madison, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Louisville, Chicago, Minneapolis for Caterwaul, and then we're playing with Brainiac afterwards. All fantastic stuff. Going to be announcing some East Coast stuff in the fall.
Is this the last Bandcamp Friday, or did they put a quash on? Because I remember at one point they were like, "This is the last Bandcamp Friday."
They were, and then they brought them back, but it's not every first Friday now. They have some inscrutable logic that nobody understands as to when they do them, but it's definitely this Friday. So good day to give me money. Actually, that's any day, but it's especially a good day to give me money.
because then Conan gets all the money.
Yes, correct.
Yes,
right.
As opposed to just some of the money. So
money. In summation.
And Eileen, we kind of teased your FilmSuck.
Sorry. Caterwaul 2, 4-day music festival, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Friday, May 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 43 bands. Thank you very much.
Yes.
And at least two co-hosts hanging out. You know?
Yeah, that's right. You can.
Yeah,
exactly. It's back in
meeting. One running it, but at least two of them hanging out.
Yeah. I'll be the most sober and available too, because Forrest is gonna be up there with a video camera.
Yeah,
I'm curious why you included sober on that, but okay.
I don't know. I was very sober most of that festival.
All right. You want a trophy or what?
Which is surprising. Like I shouldn't have been.
Is it me? Am I going now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you got an essay on hundreds of beavers, and that's
I do, and yes, that's really the only really exciting thing to add. I mean, I write for Jacobin, I write about film, I write film reviews. As I mentioned, I just reviewed Challengers, hated it, and I'm standing strong on that stance against waves of hatred that's coming my way. My podcast is called FilmSuck. It's Patreon. You can find news of it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual places. And yeah, I just we do episodes every other week, and on the alternate weeks I write. And so I'm writing about this new delightful film that was recommended to me by Conan, right? And another friend, almost simultaneously, like within 2 days.
That's awesome.
Amazing. And then it also played at the local art house theater a week later. In Buffalo. So all of a sudden it's everywhere, and it's called Hundreds of Beavers. So amazing.
All the beavers. The beavers are bringing it all over the place, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. They are busy.
They're very. So anyway, it's
a delay of a movie. That was a great piece.
It really is. It's an exciting thing because there's no movie like it, and how often do we get to say that anymore? Almost never. So that's all I got to plug. Sorry, I always feel embarrassed. You guys are such great pluggers. And then I got my little whoopee 2 things, and I can never think of another damn thing to say. But they're
I am a FilmSuck subscriber and patron, and I enjoyed your Civil War episode mostly because almost every other show that's ever that has covered it is like, I do not feel represented by listening to this at all. I definitely felt represented by listening to it, which ultimately came out on the side of like, yeah, I enjoyed that, but it's very forgettable. Which is not what I expected.
Isn't that weird? You'd think even if you didn't like it, you'd find it memorable. It's gone. I can barely recover anything.
Would you say that photojournalists are the real essential workers?
I mean, what I did say was, and I think as I said this in the letterbox, is like it behaves as if it's come and see, and it's more like JCPenney has followed.
Yeah, that's very good. Wow, yes. It has such enormous, self-importance, this film, and then it's another day at the office. Yeah.
And Kaylee Spaney looks like she's 12, and it's hard for me to take her serious.
Oh my God, she's so
even she's a good actress. I can't. I just can't.
She just looks like the youngest of the young, and to see her flirting with much older men, or seemingly much, it's just like.
Why are you putting this child in danger?
Why exactly? Yeah.
Well,
it's like at the end of Game of Thrones when Arya Stark, took off her shirt, and I'm like everybody on the internet's just like, oh my God!
No, don't do it. I know.
I'm gonna get on a list.
people are watching Game of Thrones for the nudity, but not that.
Not like that. Not like that.
But Eileen, do you have final thoughts on this?
Final thoughts, Jesus. Final thoughts. What have I said so far? I'm the biggest fan, so I'm the most prejudiced in favor of this film and of Craig Gillespie.
Yeah, you got to parlay that into interviewing him for Jacobin.
Oh yeah, that would be great. You're right. Why don't I do these things? I'm just not ambitious enough. I'll have to get on Bhaskar.
You should get us as part of your hire us
as idea men.
I just think
a lot of ideas do fly around. We already
Gillespie's take on class is a good one. It's missing from pop cultural representations. We just need to flood all media with this stuff. We do not. Part of the reason, so sorry, mini rant. So many people just thoughtlessly identify upward is of course because that's how popular media has worked forever, with rare pockets of a more working class poor affinity and identification.
I mean,
and because we don't have it,
media, right? Like that's who owns.
Well, yeah, it makes total sense. But you do get periods where there's some counteraction. We just don't happen to be in one of those periods, so it's pretty rare, and it would really be important for a lot of people. If you lean very hard left, you're a socialist or whatever, and you have to deal with your family and your friends and all the people who aren't, talking to them is just a surreal experience. They it's that Thanksgiving dinner nightmare problem of having to talk to your relatives about and hearing their political views. And every time I go to the movies, I'm just rudely reminded, like this, so much of this is why they're just a series of knee-jerk political stances that are everywhere in movies. Civil War is a good example of a typical like centrist liberal bunch of bullshit going on.
That's why I say people say it's apolitical. I'm like, this is the most centrist movie I've seen in forever. Are you kidding me?
It's ludicrous.
Apolitical. Jesus.
I know. Anyway, sorry. Little mini rant for why I really like this seemingly sweet and seemingly forgettable little comedy. It's much more than that. It's a really great film. And it's just a almost completely overlooked film. So I'm really thrilled you guys decided to take it on because it's crickets otherwise on this film.
Now that you brought up the media thing, I think that there's like an interesting juxtaposition throughout this too, where they constantly have the cable news footage, like where you're watching like CNBC or something like that, right? Where it's these talking heads that are supposed to be the ones informing you on what's going on in the market, but really have not much to say. I mean, the perfect one is fucking Jim
Kramer.
Kramer. And he's throughout this, he's like, oh, Wall Street bets, like blah blah blah, like you know what I mean? Like, and there's such a juxtaposition between a movie that actually has something to say, using all this like fluff kind of B-roll footage of CNBC, which you can really turn it on at any point. They're pretty much saying the same thing unless something like this is going on, and they're like, oh, let's try to make it seem as bad as possible.
Yeah.
But Andy, final thoughts.
I have to say, like, this movie kind of makes up where Wall Street and Wolf of Wall Street kind of fail. They kind of captures, like, because it always makes the bad guys look cool because it's focused on the bad guys. Whereas the bad guys are just dicks who are over there like sweating a lot.
Yeah, they need like a Nick Offerman version of Gordon Gekko.
and he's just going shitballs all the time. I'm sorry, it's just the delivery of that. It's always, every time he said it was just great. It cracked me up.
Yeah, but he knew that was the case. He hammed into it too. Like when they finally handed him the subpoena, and he's like, shitball. Like, he knew that delivery was working.
So I love the fact that you actually do have a movie that delves in class in a way that Wolf of Wall Street didn't, and I think we should see. We definitely need more movies like this. Come on, Hollywood, listen to us. We know what we're talking about.
No more noble CEOs. We've seen enough of that.
Yes. Jesus.
They're gonna take that advice, but they're gonna do the wrong thing with it, like they always do. Like, you're like, we need to put Pete Davidson in more movies.
We need more TikTok dances. That's what people want. No. Why is that what you got from that?
They do it like the Emoji Movie, but it's TikTok dance. The movie.
That's right.
But
Good night,
Conan,
man.
final thoughts. I know you need to get out of here.
I do. I'm gonna keep it short though. I think there's a really great David versus Goliath, slobs versus snobs tale, and it's made all the more delicious because it's based on real events. So I think it works really well as a big short style dissection of how screwed up our financial system is. And every single piece of it is set up to give the haves more and keep the have-nots in the chump category. Exactly. That's where... See, even dogs know it. I found it very funny at parts and those are the parts that were meant to be funny, which is great. That's good for a comedy, right? Paul Dano is great, but the whole cast is pretty strong, much like Apes Together.
All right, that was a good final line. I've been trying to tweak my Letterboxd final lines too to be like, all right, we got to do something here. Try to. All right, well, that's our.
How's that going? Is that going okay, or
that's our? I think I'm all right at it, but we're doing this is our last Monday night extravaganza, and we're coming back next week with.
We got the money, as it turns out. So there you
go. We're not holding anymore. Next week we're coming back with Little Women, which is a hard turn, I think.
It really is. with Becky Rice and our chief Greta Gerber correspondent Lauren Chenard. So
yeah,
it'd be good.
She wants to do Muppet Treasure Island. Lauren Chenard, well, I guess she's on the West Coast, so it's 3 hours before. But it was like at midnight. She's like, we should do Muppet Treasure Island in the.
I'm never gonna turn down doing Muppet movies. So
it's a good one too.
Yeah, go for it.
But all right, we will see you next week. Join our TikTok community where we do all the dances.
Get the money.